I've tried to record this video a number of times already, each time with this overly long, engaging prelude before revealing my prediction. But I'm not going to do that for this one because you can probably guess what my prediction is. Like most people, I'm picking Anthony Joshua to win, and I think he's going to win big. I just think that he is the superior fighter in almost every aspect. Now, don't get me wrong, Daniel Dubois definitely has some considerable strengths on his side, such as his strength, his power, his bravery, it seems. That's a quality that he's cultivated in his last two fights especially. Something that was being questioned for a while after he quit against Joe Joyce and Alexander Usyk. But I just see Daniel Dubois as, even though he's had two good results where, as I say, he's been able to cultivate his fighting spirit, I just think those results, those fights have flattered him. I think it's quite clear to see that Jarrell Miller wasn't in the best of shape. Filip Hrgović, I never really rated him all that highly. Got to be honest though, truth be told, I did pick both of those guys to beat Dubois. Although I was very honest in the fact that I said I'd prefer to see Dubois win. But nevertheless, I didn't pick him to. But stylistically, I just don't think those guys could really, truly capitalise on Daniel Dubois' weaknesses. And they did to an extent, particularly Hrgović. But I think the psychological dynamic at play, Hrgović, in a very naturally arrogant character, and I think he was already contemptuous of Daniel Dubois. And I think he just overestimated his own abilities and underestimated the abilities of Dubois, particularly Dubois' punch resistance, which did seem pretty solid in that fight because he took a lot of punches, a lot of flush punches from Filip Hrgović. Although how good a puncher is Hrgović? I know he got a pretty dramatic stoppage against Dempsey McKean, but what's McKean done before or since? So I don't know. I never rated Hrgović that highly, but nevertheless, give Daniel Dubois his credit for his recent wins. I just think his approach to boxing is too basic. And now basic isn't bad. There have been great fighters of the past who have a very basic approach to the ring, but they have very few flaws, very few holes in their game, and so it's difficult to capitalize on any mistakes because they just don't make mistakes that often. Whereas with Dubois, that's not the case. Many instances he's wide open. He doesn't have very good positional awareness. And so in that Hrgović fight, I can't help but think of the instances where Dubois was getting tagged by big punches and he wasn't even committing to something. He wasn't committing to an action. He wasn't committing to some kind of threat, some threatening offensive move. It was just when he was moving around the ring. And there's such little variation in his boxing, even the way he holds his guard. There's no active guard. There's no different looks. He doesn't present much other than his offense. And now his offense is good. Don't get twisted. I think if he lands his best punches on AJ is going to be in a lot of trouble. But other than some small success with a jab, I just don't see how he lands anything else. Because on the flip side, AJ, he has very good positional awareness. He doesn't have the widest range. He can still be a little bit upright. His chin can be up high. Sometimes he makes mistakes, obviously, but even great fighters make mistakes. I just see a bit more care in what AJ does. He moves around the ring more purposefully. And even against Francis Ngannou, which probably isn't the best comparison, especially because Francis Ngannou is very inexperienced, but still I think there's some value in looking at that performance of AJ because you can see some of his thought process. As I say, down to even the way he moves around the ring, he was managing distance very well, making sure that he's just out of range if he's moving laterally. And even if there isn't enough space, he'll move laterally, but he'll adjust his guard to anticipate shots from Francis Ngannou. And I think it's the small things like that which can be the difference. AJ by this point is a veteran, so he understands the importance of these things, whereas Dubois is experienced, but much less experienced than AJ. And on top of that, I just don't think Dubois really has the kind of character to to take these things on board. You know, I've spoken about how you have one guy in Daniel Dubois who's very simple, doesn't think much, compared to Anthony Joshua, who thinks too much. He's an overthinker, and both have got pluses and minuses. I'd wager that Daniel Dubois is probably a braver guy because he thinks less about consequence, whereas Anthony Joshua probably thinks more about consequence, but on the flip side, that means he's more careful and he's less willing to take risks, but he probably has a more detailed thought process in regards to how he's going to set up his boxing. And I think that's what's going to pay off here is the thought process, is the approach, is the intelligence. I think Daniel Dubois' best chance of winning this fight is if he looks to impose himself on Anthony Joshua, looks to push him back, use that jab, which is famed by this point. It's a very basic jab, but it's very powerful. Many people have given their testimonial regarding Daniel Dubois' jab, and I think he can definitely make it count. And I think there will be moments where he can potentially disrupt Anthony Joshua with that jab, because even against Francis Ngannou, who isn't a dedicated boxer, he's an MMA guy, he was able to catch Anthony Joshua out sometimes. There were moments where Anthony Joshua just bit down a bit too hard on a jab or a feint, and his right hand parry was out of position and it was quite far from his face, and Francis Ngannou was able to either go down the middle with a jab or come around the side with that kind of long left hook. Maybe Dubois can do that. I suspect that Francis Ngannou is a bit more rangy, you know, a bit longer in the arms than Daniel Dubois, but nevertheless, I think Daniel Dubois can potentially have some kind of success. I'm not sure how long that success will last because there's very little variation in what he does, and so I think once AJ has probably tasted the power of one jab, he'll be right. I really can't get hit by this, but he won't have to worry too much about Dubois adjusting after he's adjusted. So I suspect that AJ's probably going to have a good idea of what Dubois is probably trying to do from early on, and Dubois, I don't think he can afford to stand off because he's already got a size advantage, but then there's the skill difference too. And just given how open Dubois is, if he's in the firing line of AJ, I think it's really a matter of time. So he has to press forward, in my opinion. But if he does, he's going to open himself up to counterpunching opportunities of AJ. And AJ is a very underrated counterpuncher. And with Ben Davison, I think Davison has done a good job of marrying AJ's combination punching with his counterpunching. So if you give him that opportunity, or if he creates that opportunity, if he manipulates you enough, you're going to be in a world of trouble because you'll be getting hit with one hard shot, maybe two, maybe more. Who knows if he follows up. And Dubois, I just don't think he's got the defensive awareness. He hasn't been able to marry his defense and his offense. For him, his boxing is very compartmentalized, and I think that's what's going to cost him here. Daniel Dubois can definitely win this fight. As I say, he's got more than enough power. He's got the work rate. If his chin can hold up, then AJ is going to be probably in some hot water. I just don't think he can. I don't think Hrgović is the same kind of puncher that AJ is. Doesn't have the explosiveness, doesn't have the precision. And I don't think AJ is going to fight recklessly like that. I think AJ is going to... I suspect that he paces himself a lot better. You know, he doesn't just unload the clip in the first round the same way Hrgović did. So I think this fight will go a few rounds. I don't think it's going to be a 2-round job or anything like that. It could be. That wouldn't be the biggest surprise, but I don't think it will. I think that it probably goes 5 rounds, something like that. I think Daniel Dubois is going to have enough for AJ to respect, and AJ will really want to have a good idea of how Dubois is approaching him before he lets his hands go. I think a lot of it's going to be Dubois looking to come forward, but struggling to pin AJ down because AJ, he has that purposeful movement. He manages the distance quite well. He's probably going to be timing Dubois on the way in. Probably not even looking to fight in an exciting fashion. I think AJ is going to be a bit safety first and just look to chip away round 1, 2, 3. And I think as we approach the mid rounds, like the fifth, so we're getting out the first third of the fight, I think that's when the damage is going to start to show on Dubois. Probably taking a lot of jabs, probably a lot of long punches, but not the hardest long punches, just the stinging, accurate ones. And then, yeah, I think come round 5, AJ's probably going to be able to. He's probably softened Dubois up enough. Dubois has slowed down, but I think Dubois will still be trying, and I think that's going to be to his detriment. I imagine he just puts himself in the firing line, gets maybe a little bit desperate, and just AJ lowers the boom and takes him out. Yeah, not the most comprehensive breakdown, but that's just what I see in my mind's eye based on watching these guys for years. I think Dubois will have moments where that jab gets through, but I think AJ's just a bit too shrewd, a bit too experienced, and Dubois is just not varied enough, just not intelligent enough. I don't say that in a pejorative sense. I just don't think he's the most intelligent fighter, and I think his reliance on his bravery and his hunger for battle, I think that's what's going to cost him in the end, when he probably walks into something big after being softened up for a few rounds. So yeah, I'm quite confidently going AJ knockout in round 5. I think Dubois will probably be flat on his back. So yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I'll get back to you. But for now, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you in the next video.